Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It went through Deborah and Deborah's office.
I was hoping, and I just opened it.
Yeah, you know.
I was hoping you'd turn this. You can turn it into Clerk Guthrie, can't you? If I get them back. Not tomorrow, I'm leaving the day after. Oh, but yes.
Right here. Oh, or whoever. We'll get it there. Thank you.
Crazy day. Having Monday off is great, except for the fact that most of the public doesn't have Monday off. And they stop. I'm frustrated, they weren't there yesterday, and now they want extra quicksilvers today.
Not just quick, extra quick. It's not true.
I guess I can start. It is 5:31 p.m. We will begin the Township Board meeting for February 22nd, 2022. Would someone like to make a motion to, for Trustee Jackson to be Supervisor Pro Tem? Would someone like to second it?
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Treasurer DeShane, seconded by Trustee Wazinski. I'll take a roll call. Trustee Wazinski,
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Trustee Jackson,
Yes.
and Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Clerk Guthrie. This is the February 22nd, 2022 special meeting of the Township Board for the Charter Township of Meridian. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda is citizens address agenda items and non-agenda items. I have one green card, as is our practice. Anyone interested in speaking to the board at this time should fill out a green card and get it to us. This first one is from Mark Bloomer.
Good evening. I'm not here to address any specific topic. I just wanted to introduce myself. Some of you know me already, some of you do not. I am a member of the Planning Commission for the Meridian Township, have been for more than a year. I was appointed by Ron Styka, who was a very long-term friend of mine. Unfortunately, he died before I could get even with him for appointing me. But I was recently elected chair of the Planning Commission. So I just thought it would be appropriate if I stopped by and said hello to you all and introduced myself, because the Planning Commission is such an integral part of the activities of the township. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomer. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the township to the township board at this time? Then we'll move on to item 5, which is approval of the agenda. Trustee Wazinski?
I'll move to approve the agenda as prepared.
Is there support? Trustee Sunderland.
I support.
All in favor of the motion, please, to approve the agenda as written. Treasurer DeShane.
I would like to suggest, since we are meeting and there's a lot going on, that we add a item 6B, which would be a review of the trustee appointment process,
All right.
immediately after our discussion of the supervisor appointment process.
All right. Is there this is an addition. Is there a second to the motion? Trustee Wazinski seconds the motion. So, the motion is approval of the agenda,
I think we have to vote on
the amendment.
the amendment first,
First.
then the full.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment to add a item 6B for the trustee process, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Chair votes yes as well. And now, approval of the agenda. Trustee Wazinski,
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
as amended. Support by Treasurer DeShane. All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. And the chair votes yes as well. At this point, we come to item 6. The basis of this special meeting, board item 6A, is a supervisor appointment process. Mr. Walsh has helped us develop a process. I believe part of the process was developed largely by Supervisor Steiker. Is that correct?
Supervisor Steiker had a lot to do with the trustee process, but not the supervisor.
All right. So would you introduce item 6A for us?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Obviously, it's it's a difficult subject tonight, and I'm sure it's difficult for everyone in this room. There's a lot of us still mourning the loss of just a tremendous, tremendous person, leader in this community, one that will never be forgotten. And this community is working on how do we do something permanently to reflect Ron Steiker's contributions to the community, and more on that at an appropriate time. You're right, Madam Supervisor. I have developed a process, if the board wishes to follow. It's very similar to the process for the trustee. You have that before you. It begins tonight with the board approval of the process. Then it would start tomorrow with us announcing the vacancy, similar to what we did with the trustee process. Require professional references and submission by March 9th. And that would allow for 2 weeks for candidates to submit their interest in being supervisor. March 10th, it'd be handed over to a committee that's yet to be determined. Keep in mind right now that a committee of 3 is a quorum. So, we'll have to talk about that eventually of how this is handled and how many people serve on that committee. And then on March 15th, the search committee would convene and discuss the applicants and decide who they wanted to interview, and then those interviews would be held on March 22nd. So that's a month from today. As you know, state law allows you, the board, 45 days to make a decision on a replacement. This position was deemed by state law to be vacant on February 15th, a week ago today. So the board has roughly 38 days to fill the position. The process that I just laid out to you is 30 days. So you would meet the deadline by about a week if you moved forward with this process tonight. There's a second option that's available to you as well. There might be more. These are the two that we came up with, and that is the board could appoint one of their own as supervisor as immediate as this evening. You could do that, and if you do that, then that obviously does away with the process that was just laid out to you. You'd have an immediate appointment tonight, and depending upon if that happened and who assumes that position as supervisor by a majority vote of the board, then that would affect other things, such as the trustee process and all that, and we would get into that if we need to. I don't need to get into that now because I really would turn it back over to you, Madam Supervisor. You can consider the process that I just laid out, which would be an appointment on March 22nd, which would be administered by my office and the HR office. Or the board could consider an immediate appointment tonight of a supervisor. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I turn it back over to you, Madam Supervisor.
Thank you. So the floor is open for a motion. Clerk Guthrie.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Supervisor Pro Tem Pat Jackson as the Meridian Township Supervisor effective immediately.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded that Pat Jackson be appointed as Meridian Township Supervisor effective immediately. Is there further discussion? Mr. DeShane.
Thank you. Supervisor is an important job. It's the leader of this board, the person who convenes the meetings, who puts the agenda together, and helps to focus our discussions and our actions. Trustee Jackson,
That's right.
Supervisor Pro Tem, I think in serving as the Pro Tem over 2 of the past 5 years, you've done an excellent job in that, and I think that you would serve that role very ably for the township until elections were held, and I would also hope that you, and if you accept this nomination, would intend to put your name on the ballot to run for the remainder of the term for supervisor until the next general election, when all of us are up for election in 2024. Is that your intention?
It is.
Okay, thank you. If you look on that board there and you look at the supervisors on that board, almost all of them came from the ranks of trustees. And I think, therefore, for us to appoint one of our own, particularly one as able and with such history as you, would be the right move. Manager Walsh mentioned a third process, which was to bring someone else in from outside. As far as I know, we haven't gotten a lot of requests for that since the passing of Supervisor Steicha. I think the public knows it's a big job, and not a lot of people are wanting to jump right into that role immediately. There is a lot to learn to be a supervisor, and your dozen years on the Planning Commission and now 5 years on the board, I think I've prepared you well for it. So I will gladly vote for you as to be the supervisor until elections are held, and I'm very confident you will ably serve us as supervisor.
Thank you very much. Other comments? Clerk Guthrie.
Yes, the supervisor position is more time consuming than I think maybe people realize. It takes quite a bit of dedication. It takes quite a bit of time commitment. It takes quite a bit of commitment from family, understanding when you are on the township board, especially as supervisor. You may have many early meetings and many evening meetings and many weekend meetings. It's just the nature of being a public servant for Meridian Township. I've always been impressed with Trustee Jackson's and before becoming a trustee, being on the Planning Commission, the amount of dedication and commitment you have to Meridian Township and the number of boards and commissions that you've served on, and being on the broadband task force with the county. I think your dedication and commitment to this community and proves to me, and your knowledge, your institutional knowledge you have, proves to me why you should be supervisor of Meridian Township and why I made the recommendation and made the motion for you to serve. And so I appreciate, as a 40-year resident of the township, I appreciate all the service that you've provided to this community.
Trustee Wazinski.
In addition to treasurer and clerk, I also agree that your institutional foundational knowledge is really important in this particular time when we've got a lot of transition happening on this board. We need really good leadership to help us establish, another solid board making good intentional decisions, and I feel you have all of the right components to do that. You served on the Planning Commission and the Downtown Authority. In addition, I think many, but the one that I've worked on with you most is the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion that you've showed great leadership in. So I also 100% support you assuming this role, and I'm excited to hear that you'll plan to run in August.
Other comments? No?
Oh, yeah, no, I think that at this time, I think Pat Jackson is the most qualified, the most experience, and that she would do just a supremely excellent job.
Thank you all very much for that endorsement. We still have a motion before us.
Madam?
Yes, Mr. Walsh.
Sorry, not to interrupt you. I just want to be clear to the public who's watching or in the audience here what we're talking about the election, so everyone knows. If this motion is approved, Trustee Jackson, I understand, is accepting the position of supervisor and therefore is vacating her position as trustee and would, under the law, on election law, would have to stand election this fall for it. So when they're talking at the table about election coming up, people probably wonder, well, elections aren't until 2024. And not in this case. Because of the timing of this, which no one planned, the new supervisor would have to file by April, a date in April, and stand for election in August and November, just so everyone's clear in the public out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other comments? Mr. DeShane.
And to add to what the manager said, because of the time frame for us needing to appoint a new trustee, and possibly 2 trustees in the next 30 days. Both of those trustees will also have to run for election, first in the August primary and then in the November election. So there'll be now, it appears, 3 township officials that would normally not be on the 2022 ballot, but because of the resignation and the untimely passing of Supervisor Steichel, we will now have 2 trustee positions and 1 supervisor position on the 2022 ballots.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we can talk about it again in item B.
Yes.
So the motion before us is to appoint myself, Patricia Jackson, as Meridian Township Supervisor, effective immediately. All in favor of the motion, please. Do we need a roll call?
Let's do it.
We had a second from,
Wazinski, yes.
yep,
But we don't need a roll call.
we'll do a roll call.
We'll do a roll call. vote.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd request a roll call.
Trustee Sunland,
Yes.
Supervisor Pro Tem Jackson,
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes, Treasurer DeShane,
Yes.
and Trustee Wazinski.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And thank you all for your confidence and endorsement of carrying on the Meridian Township Board. The next item that we've been alluding to is the trustee positions. The situation has suddenly changed. Mr. Walsh, would you like to summarize those changes and where we are?
Thank you. So now we have 2 vacant trustee seats, and I think that's why Mr. DeShane asked for this to be on the agenda. So there's a couple of issues to think about here, and one is that you already have a process in place. So do you wish to just make it a two-seat process and not start a new process at this point, a new 30-day process, maybe complicate things. What you could do is simply make this, the applications that are current right now is when you get to the point of interviewing, simply appoint 2 instead of 1. That'd be perhaps the simplest way to go about this. The other thing to keep in mind and for you to discuss when I go back and sit down is right now your process is set up with a committee, and two of the 7 members are going to be involved in this process. It's a very big discussion when you think about the impact on the board. So one thing you may want to consider is right now, in fact, when we keep in mind when you set the committee up. I know this gets complicated, but it's where we are. When you set the committee up, you set a committee up of 3, right? Yes. Not a quorum, but now it's a quorum because you have 5 members. Mm-hmm. So 2 questions for you to consider. 1, do you wish to simply, you don't need to have a motion or anything, you simply have 2 seats open, you have a trustee process open, so you could simply make it a 2-trustee appointment process without a vote or a motion. And the second one, it would involve the committee. Do you want to, because the committee is a quorum and it has to be posted legally and have an open meeting and the whole process, and it's such an important discussion, do you wish as a board to do away with the committee and have the full board, all 5 of you have input on this 2 appointment for the trustees, because it's going to be a scheduled, it's going to be a special meeting and it's going to be posted. So do you just want to expand that 3 to 5 and have everyone have a say in who's going to be interviewed? That's the first question. Obviously, all 5 of you will have input on the 15th of March before your regular board meeting. You'll all interview the candidates and you'll all make the choice. The question before you, the second one is, do you wish to make the selection committee, instead of 3 of you, which is a quorum, make it all 5 of you? Those are the 2 things to think about as you move forward. And I don't know if Treasurer DeShane had anything else to offer, but those are just my thoughts on where we're at tonight.
Okay. So we will essentially open the 2 questions for discussion. And I think I saw Trustee Wazinski's hand first.
I have a question for the manager. Manager Walsh, you said that it's a possibility for us just to combine the 2 trustee selection process. With that, I know that there is obligation to post the open position. Do we still have to do another posting, or that just covered under the original posting to the public?
Yeah, I'll check with council to be sure, but my hunch is that since it's posted for an open trustee seat, we simply would just make that a 2-person selection. I don't think we need to change anything we've done.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Treasurer DeShane.
I appreciate the comments of the manager. My first thoughts on this were that the supervisor had appointed a review committee or a committee to kind of narrow down our choices for this, to bring us 3-4 candidates. Possibly having a second review committee made up of the 2 members of the board that are not part of the first committee that would bring another candidate forward. And I still kind of like that idea, but at the same time, we're going to have a quorum. These are going to be public meetings as well, so we need to be aware of that. But the advantage of a second committee is the first committee can come up with a candidate or a group of candidates that it presents to the board. On what date do we have for that? The March 8th. On March 9th, the second committee could take the remaining candidates and bring back, now since we have 2 positions to fill, we could have an additional group of candidates to fill. So it's going to make for perhaps a longer day when we review all these candidates, so that, let's say we were intending to have 3 finalists before. We might now have 5 or 6 finalists. 3 brought forward from the first group, which would be, as the supervisor pointed out, now Supervisor Jackson, Trustee Sunland, and Trustee Wazinski. The second review committee would again be Supervisor Jackson, Clerk Guthrie, and myself. So I'm open to what the rest of the board has to think. I think the advantage of having two separate committees is we might have a little bit more time to review it and get different input. Both will be public meetings anyway, so whatever we say will be part of the public record. So I'm anxious for your feedback.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. I do like the manager's suggestion because it makes it easier. The process is easier, it's less confusing to the public understands it better, it's easier to communicate. We have 2 open trustee positions, the deadline to apply is this date. We already have the dates out there, the communications team can just reiterate that now there's 2 instead of 1. And I do like the inclusion of the additional board members since they are, like the manager stated, these are quorums. With the number of board members that we have here. My question for the manager in regards to the applications, are these applications available online for anyone to look at, or are they provided to the board and the board looks through them first? Like, how does that application submission process go? How is that public info?
So if I understand your question correctly, if Mr. Bloomer applied to be a trustee, is his application available online? Is that the question? Or just the application itself, the blank one too?
Is his application available? Is anybody who applies application available for anyone to look at, or is that given to board members only?
Yeah, I wouldn't think we would make that available online because we treat it as an applicant in a confidential way until the process comes up. The application itself to apply is on there. And one other thing while I'm up here, if I may, is that keep in mind, under state law, even if you had, because this committee has a functioning role of bringing back, that's really doing a deliberative role of the board itself, even if you had 2 people, not a quorum, even if you had 2 people that were reviewing your applications, it would be a public meeting because they're fulfilling a role, a deliberative role, and bringing a decision back that would normally fall to the board. That's the way the law reads. It's more eloquent if you read it, but basically until anytime you get a group together and they're fulfilling a role of that, it's a public meeting. So I just wanted you to have all that information in case you were thinking of a 3-and-2 committee. Everything's public. And once, to answer your question further, Clerk Guthrie, once we get to the point of the deadline, then all applications will be made public for the entire public to see.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Trustee Wazinski.
Before manager sits down. I was under a little bit different impression than what the treasurer just laid out. Do we need, so it's a quorum, do we need to make 2 separate processes, or because it's a quorum, we can have all 5 at one time?
All 5 at one time, because then you're all having equal input, and you're having it together, and it's not segregated.
Okay.
That was our recommendation, but it's totally your process. But yeah, since it's all public meetings, and where the whole point was to, I think the treasurer's point's well taken, let's all 5 have input on this because it's a big decision. Mm-hmm. And then to the clerk's point, it might be easier to do it all at once.
Great. I could, so I would support that. I also feel it's a very big decision, and if we're going to have a quorum, we might as well have all 5 of us a part of that decision. So I would support the public meeting with all 5 board members.
All right, and so what we're talking about at this point is the review committee, the application review committee. And we're all aware that after that is an interview process before the whole board as well. All right? So we're, what I'm hearing as a consensus is that we make the trustee position, trustee search, a combined search for 2 additions to this board.
I'm so sorry. Oh my God.
The deadline for applications, by the way, is March the 4th. And those applications are submitted to Mr. Walsh and Ms. Titoff or Mr. Walsh?
T-Hoff.
Yeah, so board members, the deadline for applications, give me 1 second here real quick, is Friday, March 4th at 4 p.m. And they're being filed with Director Tehoff's office.
All right, at 4 p.m.
Yep. The search committee is scheduled to convene on March 8th, which is a Tuesday, so the traditional board schedule. So the packet would be published on Friday, the same as a traditional board meeting.
All right. Mr. Walsh?
It just so happens we have an expert in the room. Mr. Bloomer, who served with Mr. Steica at the AG's office for many, many years, confirmed. He actually wrote the first opinion on the Open Meetings Act. And he confirmed not a second notice to Trustee Wazinski's question, so we're good. So I didn't know we had an expert in the room, but we do. So thank you.
That's always good to know. All right, so we're having a joint board meeting on March the 8th to review and select finalists by the whole board. And the rest of the process, which I believe involves a meeting on March the 15th, where the whole board interviews the finalists. I think the time is a little earlier than our regular board meeting, is that right?
5 p.m.
Correct. And right now, Supervisor Herring-Jackson, that time is up in the air. It depends upon how many candidates we have and then what time the board decides to have those and how much time you want to allocate to each interview. And to that, we won't know until March 8th.
Right. Treasurer DeShane.
The current process for this March 15th meeting states the newly appointed trustee will be sworn in as soon as possible and attend the April 12th board meeting. I don't think we want to, but by that reading, you could technically say the first trustee we pick could ostensibly be sworn in and be part of the process. Okay, I don't think that's what the intention of the board. So could we clarify that and say the newly appointed trustees will be sworn in the following day and attend the April 12th board meeting, so that we're clear about that both of the new trustees will be sworn in the following day, just to be clear on that process.
Okay, that's kind of the way I read it anyway,
Yeah.
but the clarification is makes good sense.
Okay.
All right, are we agreed then? I don't think we have to vote on that. Then, if there are no further questions on that process, no other changes that we need to make, we'll move on to item 7, which is comments from the public. I don't have any other green cards. No one in the public would like to speak to the board at this time. Item 8, other matters and board member comments. I see Mr. Walsh.
I just want to speak on behalf of the management team. I know a lot of them aren't here this evening, and by the way, our first week with our new assistant manager has been nothing short of phenomenal.
Okay.
We're off to a great start. We're going to make a great team. But on behalf of the management team and our entire staff, I want to congratulate you, Supervisor Herring-Jackson. I've had the pleasure of working with you for the last 9 years with the Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, as a trustee, and now I look forward to working with you as supervisor. Everything that has been said by your fellow board members, I echo. Professionalism, a lot of knowledge, and you're going to do extremely well as our supervisor. You have one really, really key skill that's going to and that is you listen. and you're going to serve this community well. So thank you on behalf of the management team, congratulations, and we look forward to working with you in your new capacity.
Thank you all very much. Very much. Are there other board members with comments? Treasurer DeShane.
Just a comment about this process. I think we've been open and are very transparent in this process, and the questions that will be asked, the process that we will follow. And we do really want to find the best candidates out there for this position. It's the Township Board is a very important role. It has a lot of important legislative authority. It impacts the lives of our residents, and we want to make sure that those new board members are aware of that, and that the right people that fit the character of this community and with the right skills. I'm confident we'll find that. Part of the reason I mention it is that the city of Lansing recently went through this process to replace a council person, and there have already been some comments about that process. They felt that was not open enough, and that there should have been more input with the individual candidates. I think what they did is they gave each candidate 3 questions to answer, and there was not a lot of back and forth with the candidates in person. We'll have that. We'll have the chance, hopefully a half an hour or more with each of the finalists to really talk, ask questions as we have in the past, and get a sense of those candidates. And as it will be on home TV, the public can review that process as well. I think all of us are committed to being open, transparent, no backroom deals. That we're looking for the best candidates and for these 2 positions, and I'm confident with this process and the great talent out there amongst our 44,000 residents. We'll find those 2 candidates. Okay. Thank you.
Clerk Guthrie.
Thank you, Supervisor. I just want to, in case anyone's watching this and interested, the application process for trustee is on the Meridian Township website, and they can find the information there. And it does go to, as the manager mentioned earlier, it does go to our HR director, Abby T. Hoff. These 2 trustee positions fulfill the vacant seats that we currently have. And so if there are people who apply and they don't get selected and they would like to run to fulfill the term for 2024, they can. If people are selected and they're on, they will still need to run. And the deadline for that is 4 p.m. April 19th, and that information is on the county clerk's website, the state website, and our website as well. So I just wanted to make it clear that these 2 terms do expire, and that if you would like to seek office for the remainder of the term through 2024, that when that deadline is.
And I would just add that the one thing we haven't done is invited anyone who is interested in working with this group of people and the township to fulfill our goal of improving the life and the quality of life in Meridian Township. Please get your applications in for service on this township board by March the 4th at 4 o'clock. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor of the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
And all opposed? Any opposed? Then the chair votes yes, and we're
All right.
adjourned. Thank you all very much for being here tonight.